Hello, and welcome to Readings in English. If you're here, it's probably because you're interested in learning or improving your English in a way that's both enjoyable and meaningful. English is a language that connects people from all corners of the world. It opens doors to new cultures, experiences, and friendships, helping us bridge distances and understand one another better. Through stories, we can explore the beauty of the English language in a way that's easy to understand and deeply moving. Stories offer more than just language practice. They invite us into different lives and experiences, helping us learn vocabulary, expressions, and cultural nuances naturally. Here on this channel, each story is crafted to not only enhance your English skills, but to inspire and captivate you, whether you're a beginner or advanced learner. Today's story is called The Cafe of Cultures. This story follows Mia, a young woman who moves to London and faces the challenge of learning English or building a new life in a foreign country. The Cafe of Cultures isn't just a story about language, it's about courage, connection, and the power of community. Mia's journey is filled with moments of self-discovery, setbacks, and triumphs that remind us of the power of language to unite us. So get comfortable and let's dive into the Cafe of Cultures together. I hope you find inspiration, motivation, and maybe even a bit of your own story in Mia's journey. Let's begin. Mia stepped off the plane and into a different world. The sharp contrast between her quiet Spanish hometown and the bustling, rainy streets of London struck her immediately. The crowds move with purpose, the air filled with the sound of voices, and all around her, signs in English pointed the way. She clutched her small suitcase, feeling excitement mixed with a faint trace of worrying. She had dreamed of coming to England for years, ever since her father had shared stories about the country's literary history. But standing here, surrounded by strangers speaking a language she barely understood, Mia felt a pang of isolation. Her apartment was modest but cozy, a small room in a shared building near her new job at the Cafe of Cultures. On her first morning, she took a deep breath and set out for work, her heart pounding with anticipation. The cafe was nestled on a lively street, its front adorned with colorful chalkboards advertising specialty drinks and cultural events. Inside, the aroma of fresh coffee mingled with the faint sounds of music, creating a welcoming atmosphere. She approached the counter, hoping her limited English would be enough to get her through the day. Mia's new manager, Linda, greeted her with a warm smile, speaking slowly and gesturing as she explained the basics. Linda showed her around, pointing out the equipment, supplies, and order forms. Mia nodded attentively, her mind racing to understand each word. Throughout the morning, she stumbled through interactions with customers, her face flushing whenever they spoke too quickly for her to follow. A few customers noticed her struggles and attempted to slow down, while others seemed impatient, leaving her feeling embarrassed and frustrated. Each failed conversation left her questioning whether she truly belonged here. By midday, Mia's confidence had dwindled. She felt trapped in a whirlwind of sounds and gestures, where even the simplest exchanges felt like puzzles she couldn't solve. Despite her dream of living in London, the language barrier turned each day into a test of resilience. After her shift, she left the cafe feeling defeated, wondering if she'd made a mistake. But as she walked home, the city lights illuminating the night, she reminded herself why she had come to learn, to grow, and to create a life she could be proud of. And so, she resolved to push through her fears and face the challenges of her new world. The following morning, Mia arrived at the cafe, determined to make a fresh start. She greeted Linda and focused on each task, carefully memorizing the menu items and their English names. During a lull in the rush, she noticed a man at the counter with a kind expression, watching her with a slight smile. His name was Carlos, the cafe's chef. Originally from Mexico, he spoke English fluently but greeted her in Spanish, sensing her relief at hearing a familiar language. They exchanged a few words, and his friendly encouragement made her feel slightly more at ease. Carlos became an anchor for Mia during her shifts, offering quiet support whenever he sensed her frustration. He shared stories of his own struggles when he first arrived, telling her how he had often felt out of place and overwhelmed. "You'll get there," he assured her, patting her shoulder. Learning a language is just a new way to connect, and here you'll find people who want to connect with you. One afternoon, Mia noticed a woman sitting by the window, sketching with an intense focus. The woman's table was strewn with papers, charcoal pencils, and an array of brushes. Mia was drawn to her concentration, observing from a distance. As the cafe grew quieter, the woman looked up, noticing Mia's curiosity. She introduced herself as Annie, a local artist who frequented the cafe for inspiration. Their initial conversation was halting, but Annie's easygoing nature put Mia at ease. Sensing Mia's desire to learn, Annie offered to help her practice English whenever she visited. Their sessions became a daily ritual. Annie would stop by for coffee, sketching as she taught Mia simple phrases and expressions. Mia found herself looking forward to these moments as each lesson expanded her confidence. Annie's casual, encouraging style turned language into something alive, transforming unfamiliar words into tools for understanding. Mia felt like she was finally making progress. As the days passed, Mia began to feel a shift. She no longer approached each shift with dread, and her anxiety eased. The words on the menu, the sounds of customers' laughter, and even the hum of the coffee machine began to blend into a comforting background. While she was still far from fluent, Mia was beginning to believe that she could find a place in this new world. Mia's routine at the cafe became a steady rhythm, yet the struggles of language remained. Each shift presented a new challenge as she encountered different accents, expressions, and cultural nuances. While Annie and Carlos were supportive, Mia knew that her true progress depended on consistent practice and persistence. Determined to push through, she began carrying a small notebook in her apron pocket, ready to jot down new words and phrases she overheard. One afternoon, during a particularly busy shift, Mia struggled to understand a customer's complicated coffee order. She felt the familiar pang of frustration, but quickly pulled out her notebook and scribbled the words as best as she could. When the customer left, she whispered the phrases to herself, determined to remember them. Her notebook began to fill with phrases and notes about common orders and descriptions, and each new entry felt like a small victory. After her shift, Carlos noticed her notebook and nodded approvingly. "That's a good habit, Mia." Little by little, you're building your own vocabulary. His encouragement gave her a surge of pride, and she felt even more motivated to keep learning. As she reviewed her notes later that evening, she realized that each word carried a memory, a moment from her life in London. Her language journey was becoming a reflection of her experiences in this new city. Mia started looking forward to her quiet moments at home when she would review her notebook, carefully practicing the words and phrases she'd encountered. She repeated them aloud, letting their sounds become more familiar. She found herself gradually piecing together the language, each word bringing her one step closer to understanding her new world. Though progress was slow, Mia's resolve strengthened. She understood that learning a language was not just about words, but about connection, and she was determined to connect with this new life she was building. As Mia's shifts continued, she grew more comfortable with her regular customers. She still struggled with conversations, but her notebook helped her follow simple exchanges, and she gained confidence as she noticed small improvements. Then one afternoon, a new customer entered the cafe, his presence quiet but noticeable. He was an older man, likely in his 70s, with a kind expression and a slow, thoughtful manner. He ordered tea in a gentle, precise voice, and when Mia handed him his cup, he smiled and sat by the window, gazing out into the bustling street. Over the following days, the man returned each afternoon, and Mia observed his quiet, solitary routine. She soon learned his name, John. He began to greet her with a nod, sometimes saying a few words that Mia struggled to understand but felt were somehow important. Intrigued, she grew curious about his story and made an effort to understand him despite her limitations in English. One day, as the cafe slowed down, John began speaking more extensively, sharing pieces of his past. Mia caught bits and pieces of his story, references to the war, friends lost, and memories that linger. She tried to follow along, her eyes focused intently on his, wanting to grasp every word. But as he delved deeper, the language barrier widened. She couldn't keep up, her vocabulary too limited to comprehend the depth of his experiences. Seeing her struggle, John paused and offered her a reassuring smile. She nodded back, feeling a mixture of admiration and regret. She wished she could understand him fully, but her current knowledge held her back. That night, Mia lay in bed, John's words replaying in her mind. She felt a renewed sense of determination to learn. This was why she had come to London, not just to improve her English, but to connect, to understand, to build a bridge between her life and those around her. That night marked a turning point for Mia. She resolved to improve, not only for herself, but for the people whose stories she wanted to hear. Mia returned to the cafe the next day with a clear plan in mind. Realizing that a lot of her interactions revolved around the same types of phrases and vocabulary, she decided to focus on mastering specific English expressions and terms related to her work at the cafe. She began to study the menu in depth, paying close attention to how customers ordered different drinks and foods. With Carlos and Annie's guidance, she practiced phrases such as, "How would you like that?" and "Would you like anything else with your coffee?" Repeating them aloud, she felt a glimmer of confidence taking root. Annie took special interest in Mia's progress. She'd make a point to stop by and have Mia take her order using new phrases she'd learned. These little rehearsals became part of their routine, and Mia found herself looking forward to each practice session. Whenever Annie or Carlos noticed her getting a phrase wrong, they'd patiently correct her, laughing along with her rather than at her mistakes. One afternoon, Annie surprised Mia with a challenge. "How about I bring some friends tomorrow, and you take their orders?" "Just a bit of extra practice," she suggested with a warm smile. Though nervous, Mia agreed. The thought of handling multiple orders, even with people she'd met through Annie, felt daunting. Yet, deep down, she welcomed the opportunity to step out of her comfort zone. When Annie's friends arrived the following day, they were friendly and encouraging. They made small talk, asked questions, and patiently waited as Mia stumbled through her responses. By the end of the interaction, Mia felt exhausted but exhilarated. She'd managed to take all their orders, responding in English to every question. As they left, each offered her a warm thank you, along with a smile of genuine encouragement. Mia realized that, for the first time, she had begun to feel a sense of belonging. The more Mia practiced, the more confident she grew in her ability to understand customers. With each passing day, she felt less like an outsider and more like a part of the cafe. Her efforts hadn't gone unnoticed. Even the regular customers began to engage her in short, friendly conversations. They would ask her about her background, where she was from, and what brought her to London. Mia found herself eagerly sharing bits of her own story while listening to theirs. As Mia interacted with more patrons, she realized that many of them were, in fact, immigrants like her. They, too, had stories of adjusting to life in a new country and learning English as a second language. Some shared tales of struggles similar to hers, while others offered tips and words of encouragement. One woman, originally from Poland, told Mia about her own experiences of learning English, describing it as unlocking doors to the hearts of strangers. Another regular, a Turkish man who had lived in London for over a decade, confided how it had taken him years to feel truly at ease in the city. Listening to these stories, Mia felt an unspoken bond forming between her and the other immigrants who frequented the cafe. She was no longer just a young woman struggling with English. She was part of a shared experience, a silent community connected by resilience and determination. Each customer's story added to her own journey, reinforcing her resolve to continue learning and growing. The cafe had become more than just a workplace. It was now a space where she could connect with others, each interaction an opportunity to learn about the world beyond her own. As she walked home at night, Mia felt a sense of peace and fulfillment that she hadn't known before. She realized that she was no longer just learning English for survival. She was learning it to bridge the gaps between herself and those around her, one story at a time. Mia's small notebook became an invaluable tool in her journey. Every day, she would fill it with new words and expressions she encountered at the cafe. But soon her entries expanded beyond vocabulary. She began noting down snippets of conversations, fragments of stories, and phrases that captured the essence of each interaction. These were not just random words, they were pieces of lives, small glimpses into the worlds of the people she met. One evening, after her shift, she sat at her small kitchen table, flipping through the pages of her notebook. Her notes were a patchwork of cultures, emotions, and experiences. A phrase from The Polish Woman, a heartfelt memory shared by John, a humorous saying from Carlos, all of it felt alive on the page. The notebook was no longer just a study tool. It had transformed into a collection of moments, a chronicle of her journey and the lives that had touched hers. Annie noticed her writing during one of their coffee breaks and asked about it. Blushing slightly, Mia explained how she recorded new phrases and the stories she heard. Annie was visibly moved, telling Mia that it was a beautiful way to capture her experience and that one day it might make a wonderful story in itself. Mia hadn't thought about it that way, but the idea lingered in her mind, planting the seeds for something more significant. Over time, Mia began to view her language learning as more than just acquiring skills. It was a way to understand others on a deeper level. She saw how each word held meaning beyond its definition, carrying traces of history, culture, and emotion. Her notebook became a daily ritual, a companion in her journey as she collected words like treasures. With each page she filled, her confidence grew, and she began to see herself as part of this new world she was creating. Mia's progress, however, wasn't without challenges. One busy afternoon, as she carefully took orders, she overheard the co-workers chatting by the counter. They didn't know she could hear them, and their conversation stung. One of them remarked, "She's sweet, but her English is so broken. I don't know why Linda hired her." The words cut deeply, and Mia felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. She tried to focus on her work, but the comment lingered in her mind, casting a shadow over her day. That evening, Mia couldn't shake the feeling of inadequacy. All her hard work and progress felt insignificant, overshadowed by the judgment of others. She considered quitting, thinking that maybe she wasn't cut out for this place, that perhaps she didn't belong in this English-speaking world after all. Doubt crept in, gnawing away at the pride she had begun to feel. The next day, Mia arrived at the cafe with a heavy heart, unsure if she wanted to stay. Carlos noticed her mood and gently asked what was bothering her. Hesitant at first, she opened up, sharing her doubts and the hurtful words she'd overheard. Carlos listened intently, then offered her a reassuring smile. "Mia, don't let anyone's opinion dim your light. Remember, you're here to learn and grow, not to be perfect from the start." His words reignited a spark within her. That evening, Mia went home, opened her notebook, and read through the pages, remembering the stories and words she had collected. They reminded her of her purpose, her desire to connect and understand, and the progress she had made despite the challenges. The setback was painful, but it only strengthened her resolve to push forward. She wasn't going to let a few careless words define her journey. With newfound determination, Mia returned to the cafe the following day, ready to face the challenges head-on. She knew her English wasn't perfect, but she was improving step by step, and each day brought her closer to the life she had dreamed of. A few weeks after her setback, Mia experienced a moment she had been longing for. During a particularly busy morning shift, she managed to take orders, prepare drinks, and chat with customers all in English without once feeling overwhelmed or lost. She handled each interaction with ease, offering small smiles and friendly exchanges. As she served a regular customer his coffee, she realized with a burst of pride that she hadn't once hesitated in the conversation. The customer, an older woman with a friendly smile, noticed her confidence and commented, "Your English has really improved, Mia. I remember when you first started, it's like night and day." Mia felt a warmth spread through her chest, and for the first time she genuinely believed in her progress. She had come so far from those first days of struggle, and this breakthrough moment felt like a validation of all her hard work. After the morning rush, she took a moment to catch her breath and reflect. She felt different, more at home, more connected to the people around her. The cafe was no longer a place where she simply worked. It was a space where she had grown and learned, where she had found friends and a community. Her language skills had become a bridge, allowing her to share parts of herself that had once felt hidden behind the barrier of language. Mia knew she still had a lot to learn, but she finally saw herself as capable and resilient. That evening, when she closed the cafe with Carlos, she shared her feelings with him. He smiled proudly and gave her an encouraging nod. "You're a part of this place now, Mia. Everyone here knows it. You've worked hard, and it shows." His words filled her with a deep sense of belonging, one she had been yearning for since her arrival in London. As the days grew warmer, the cafe organized a cultural exchange night to celebrate the diverse backgrounds of its patrons. The event was Linda's idea, intended to create a space for customers to share stories, food, and traditions from their homelands. When she invited Mia to participate, Mia was both thrilled and terrified. The idea of speaking English in front of a crowd made her nervous, but the thought of sharing a piece of her Spanish culture also filled her with excitement. The night of the event, the cafe was decorated with flags and symbols from different countries, giving the place a festive atmosphere. Customers brought homemade dishes, photos, and artifacts to display on small tables around the room. Mia prepared a traditional Spanish dish, hoping to share a taste of her home with the others. As she watched people interact, swapping stories and laughter, she felt grateful to be part of such a welcoming and open-hearted community. When it was her turn to speak, Mia's heart raced, but she took a steady breath and reminded herself of why she was here. With a smile, she introduced herself and shared a short story from her childhood in Spain, one that captured the warmth and closeness of her family gatherings. As she spoke, her English wasn't perfect, but she saw friendly faces nodding, listening intently, and some even laughing at her anecdotes. Annie and Carlos gave her encouraging smiles from the crowd, and Mia felt a surge of confidence. By the time she finished, the room filled with applause. Mia's heart swelled with pride as she realized how far she had come, not just in language, but in courage. She had faced her fears, shared a piece of herself, and connected with people from all walks of life. As the event continued, people approached her asking more about Spain and complimenting her on her story. That night, Mia felt not only accepted, but celebrated for who she was. For the first time, Mia saw herself as more than just an immigrant struggling with English. She was part of something bigger, a tapestry of cultures and stories that made up the unique spirit of the cafe. She walked home at evening feeling a profound sense of accomplishment, knowing that she was building a life that blended both her past and her future. The warmth of the cultural exchange night lingered with Mia in the days that followed. She felt more connected than ever to the cafe and its patrons, each interaction deepening her appreciation for the stories around her. One afternoon, as the lunchtime rush began to slow, she noticed John, the elderly regular, seated by the window, looking unusually pensive. Mia approached him, carrying his usual tea, and he offered her a faint smile as he placed a cup on his table. "Thank you, Mia," he said quietly. After a pause, he began to speak, this time with more intention, as if he wanted her to truly understand. He shared fragments of his life more slowly than usual, allowing Mia to piece together his words. As he spoke, she learned that John had served in the military during a time of conflict, an experience that had marked him deeply. He talked about friends he had lost, dreams that had faded, and the weight of memories he carried daily. Mia listened intently, her heart heavy with empathy. She sensed that sharing these memories was not easy for him, and she felt honored that he trusted her with them. The language barrier, which once felt insurmountable, now felt smaller, as if her understanding transcended the words. She nodded, offering gentle words of support, and John seemed comforted by her presence. Later, as she reflected on the conversation, Mia felt a profound sense of purpose. Learning English wasn't just a personal achievement. It was a way to open herself to others' lives, to understand and be understood. She realized that language was a bridge, connecting her to the people and the world around her. John's story gave her a renewed motivation, and she felt more determined than ever to continue her journey. As the weeks passed, Mia continued to improve her English, her confidence and understanding growing each day. One afternoon, she noticed Annie seated in her usual spot, looking unusually quiet. Mia approached her friend, sensing that something was different. Annie looked up with a bittersweet smile and explained that she would soon be moving to another city for an art residency, an opportunity she had been hoping for. Mia felt a pang of sadness, realizing how much she would miss Annie's presence and encouragement. Annie had been a guiding light for her, helping her find her way in this unfamiliar world. The thought of her friend leaving left Mia feeling vulnerable, as if she were losing a part of her support system. Annie, noticing her expression, took her hand reassuringly. "I want you to keep learning, Mia," Annie said gently. She handed Mia a small book, a collection of English stories that she had treasured. "Use this to keep practicing, and remember you're not alone. You've built something here, you're strong and capable. And we'll see each other again, I'm sure of it." Mia clutched the book tightly, her heart full of gratitude and sadness. She realized how much Annie had given her, not just in language, but in friendship and confidence. The farewell was emotional, and Mia promised to stay in touch, hoping that one day she would be able to repay the kindness and guidance Annie had shown her. That evening, Mia sat by her window, reading through the book Annie had gifted her. Each story was a new challenge, but she felt Annie's encouragement in every word. The farewell, though difficult, marked another step in Mia's journey. She had come to understand that each connection, each story, was part of her growth, even if it sometimes meant saying goodbye. She was building a life of her own, one that blended memories of her past with the dreams of her future. With Annie gone, Mia faced her shifts at the cafe, with a mix of nostalgia and determination. She took on more responsibilities, filling the small void Annie had left in both her routine and her heart. Linda, noticing Mia's growing confidence and language skills, began assigning her tasks that required more customer interaction. Mia handled orders, engaged with customers, and managed minor issues that arose, all while perfecting her English. One afternoon, a young woman with hesitant English entered the cafe, looking as lost as Mia had once felt. The woman approached the counter, glancing nervously at the menu. Recognizing the familiar look of uncertainty, Mia smiled and switched to her native Spanish, offering her a comforting word. The relief on the woman's face was instant, and as they conversed, Mia saw a bit of herself in the newcomer. It was a powerful realization. She had come full circle, from someone who felt out of place to someone capable of offering support. Over time, similar moments became more frequent. Other immigrants and newcomers to London, drawn to the cafe's reputation as a welcoming spot, would enter and gravitate toward Mia, sensing her empathy. She began helping them navigate the language barrier, offering translations and friendly encouragement. It became clear to her that her language journey was not just about herself. It was about helping others feel welcome and understood. The cafe, once a place of overwhelming challenges, had transformed into a sanctuary where she could offer the very support she had once needed. As she reflected on these encounters, Mia felt a deep sense of purpose. She realized that her own journey with English had given her the power to create connections, to help others overcome the same struggles she had faced. For the first time, she saw herself as an integral part of the cafe, someone who bridged cultures and languages. She had found her place in London, and it was here, at the heart of the cafe. Inspired by her experiences, Mia approached Linda with an idea. What if we started a language group for people who are new to English? She suggested one afternoon. Linda, enthusiastic about the proposal, readily agreed. They decided to dedicate one evening each week to host a casual gathering where patrons could come to practice English, share stories, and build confidence in a supportive environment. The first language group night brought a small but eager group of people. Some were regulars from the cafe, while others were newcomers drawn in by word of mouth. There were people from all over, each with their own unique background, each grappling with the intricacies of English. Mia introduced herself and encouraged everyone to share a little about their lives, setting an example with her own story of struggle and triumph. As the evening progressed, the cafe filled with laughter, mispronunciations, and shared understanding. People practiced ordering drinks, role-playing conversations, and learning new phrases. Mia found herself at the center of it all, guiding and supporting, while drawing strength from the energy and positivity around her. She noticed a shy older man from Japan who spoke very little English but stayed late practicing phrases he'd learned. She offered him gentle encouragement, remembering her own timid beginnings. Mia walked home at night filled with pride and a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt before. The group was more than a language club. It was a community of people all seeking to belong, to find their voices in a new language. Week after week, the gatherings grew, and so did the bonds among the participants. Through the language group, Mia saw that the cafe had become more than a place of work. It was a place of growth, resilience, and connection for everyone involved. Her language journey had led her to this purpose, and now she could give back, helping others feel seen and understood in a world that often seemed daunting. Mia had finally found her place in this vibrant city, and her heart swelled with gratitude for the path that had led her there. One morning, Linda approached Mia with a proposal that made her heart race. The cafe had been invited to participate in a community event, a local fair celebrating cultural diversity in London. Linda thought Mia would be the perfect person to represent the cafe and share her story of learning English and building a new life in the city. Mia's first instinct was hesitation. Speaking publicly still intimidated her. The idea of sharing her story with a larger audience felt daunting, especially in English. But as she thought about all the progress she had made and the support she had received, Mia realized this was a unique opportunity to celebrate her journey. She wanted to show others that they, too, could overcome language barriers and find a place for themselves. After a deep breath and some words of encouragement from Carlos, she accepted the challenge. On the day of the event, Mia arrived at the fair with her notes, feeling both nervous and excited. The community hall was filled with booths and displays, each representing a different culture, and the air buzzed with voices and laughter. When it was time for her to speak, Mia stood in front of the microphone, her hands slightly trembling. She looked out at the audience and saw familiar faces: Linda, Carlos, and even a few regulars from the cafe, all there to support her. She began by introducing herself and sharing her initial struggles when she arrived in London. Her voice wavered at first, but as she continued, her confidence grew. She spoke about her journey from feeling lost to finding a home in the cafe, about the friendships she had made, and about the power of language to bridge gaps between people. She even added a few words in Spanish, sharing a piece of her heritage with the audience. The crowd listened intently, nodding along, and she felt the warmth of their encouragement. When she finished, the audience applauded, and Mia's heart swelled with pride. She had shared her story, not only in a foreign language, but in a way that resonated with others. She had faced her fears and, in doing so, had become a voice of encouragement for others on a similar journey. As she stepped away from the stage, she felt lighter, as if a weight she hadn't realized she'd been carrying had finally lifted. Mia returned to the cafe the next day feeling different. The experience at the community event had shifted something inside her. For the first time, she felt a true sense of belonging in London. She was no longer just a newcomer learning English. She was part of the community, contributing to its diversity and vibrancy. Her journey had transformed her, allowing her to embrace both her past and her future. In the weeks that followed, she noticed her relationships with the customers deepen. She was no longer simply a server. She had become a friend, a mentor, and a confidant. The cafe felt more like home than ever before, and each day was filled with small moments of connection that enrich her life. Mia's language group continued to grow, becoming a space where people shared not only words, but also pieces of their lives, dreams, and hopes. One evening, as she prepared to close up, Carlos joined her at the counter. "You know, Mia," he said with a warm smile, "you've become the heart of this place. You've given everyone, including me, a reason to come here every day." Mia smiled back, deeply moved. She had started her journey feeling small and uncertain, but now she understood her own strength and resilience. Standing in the empty cafe, she reflected on how much she had changed. She thought about the frightened girl who had arrived in London, unsure of her place, and compared her to the person she had become. The cafe had been her first challenge, her first teacher, and her first community, and now it was her home. As she locked the doors and walked into the quiet streets of London, Mia felt a profound sense of peace. Her journey was far from over, but she knew she was ready for whatever lay ahead. The city was no longer a place of unfamiliar sounds and faces. It was where she belonged.